So one-inch punch, Bruce did this in 1964 at the Long Beach International Karate Tournaments. And it's a technique, not a fighting technique, but a technique to show that you can generate power.
From his famous one-inch punch to doing push-ups on 2 fingers and moving faster than most eyes could see, there are plenty of stories that show that Bruce Lee had almost impossible strength and speed, which can be called nothing less than superhuman. But were these amazing abilities just the result of hard training, or was there something truly superhuman about him? Could Bruce Lee have been one of a kind, or did he use powers most of us don't understand? Join us as we examine the incredible evidence that Bruce Lee was superhuman. Unmatched strength and power-to-weight ratio. Bruce Lee's legendary one-inch punch isn't just cinematic flair, it's a prime example of explosive power rooted in biomechanics. Delivered from only an inch away, this punch generated enough force to visibly propel a grown adult backwards or into a chair. Scientists trace this power not to magic, but to Lee's ability to trigger his entire body mass in a fraction of a second, essentially giving his fist the momentum of his whole body. What makes the physics of this punch extraordinary is the level of coordination Lee achieved. A study in Popular Mechanics quotes biomechanical expert Jessica Rose, explaining that Lee synchronized his legs, hips, torso, elbow, and even a wrist flick, all in perfect sequence, to compress a massive acceleration into a tiny motion. It's akin to releasing a whip, a subtle yet devastatingly powerful snap, but that's not all. The power-to-distance ratio of his strike was off the charts. A physics-minded analysis compared a conventional punch, about 18 inches, to Lee's one-inch version and found Lee's ratio to be nearly 20 times greater. In simpler terms, he could pack as much impact into an inch as others could in a full swing, underscoring how he redefined physical limits. But Lee didn't rely purely on showmanship. Video evidence from a 1964 Long Beach demonstration shows him flattening champion Joe Louis with superhuman precision, sending Louis sprawling up to 16 feet with a punch that could generate roughly 350 pounds of force, while Lee weighed only about 130 pounds. That's comparable to Muhammad Ali's power. However, here's a detail that will surprise you. Bruce Lee's one-inch punch wasn't featured in his narrative films. It was a signature demonstration in the real world, not a cinematic stunt. The most iconic instance occurred at the 1964 Long Beach International Karate Championships, where Lee stood just an inch from a volunteer's chest and delivered the punch that sent the man visibly flying back into a chair. That historic demonstration has been reimagined in modern cinema, not in one of Bruce's films. The 2016 movie Birth of the Dragon dramatizes this moment. During the Long Beach event, Lee, portrayed by Philip Eng, unleashes the legendary one-inch punch. So while you won't find it in Enter the Dragon or Way of the Dragon, the real-life footage and its cinematic homage in Birth of the Dragon vividly capture the punch's impact and remind us just how grounded in reality this superhuman feat truly was. Beyond the physics, martial arts neuroscientists have found that expert strikers build structural changes in their brains, developing denser white matter, which enhances coordination. One study in Popular Mechanics points out that this neural refinement allowed Lee to sequence every phase of the punch perfectly, accelerating peak force transfer faster than most humans ever could. Lee also showcased jaw-dropping feats like one-armed, two-finger push-ups, pulling entire body weight on just 2 fingers, and by some accounts, even fewer at times. Observers describe these as next-level strength-to-weight demonstrations, proving muscles and control perfectly aligned. His discipline went far beyond plyometrics or martial arts training. Lee believed in high-tension body training, contracting muscle groups simultaneously throughout workouts, even during isolation exercises, to build that integrated strength and body control. That's why his feats weren't just strong, they were structurally sound. Taken together, Lee's use of biomechanics, neuromuscular mastery, and disciplined training gave him a strength-to-weight ratio rarely seen and arguably still unmatched. These aren't tall tales, but documented demonstrations grounded in science, leaving a legacy that still baffles and inspires martial artists and physicists alike. Extraordinary speed and reflexes. Bruce Lee's speed was so legendary that cameras of the 1960s frequently failed to capture his full movement. They recorded only ghostly blurs. He often had to slow down during fight scenes simply so audiences and co-stars could register his strikes. That kind of speed, invisible to the naked eye, sets the stage for why so many consider him more than just a skilled fighter. Performance measurements back this up. On the one-inch punch alone, Lee reportedly clocked a headline speed of 118 miles per hour, outputting enough raw power to send a 90-kilogram opponent skidding back nearly 5 meters. That speed over such a minimal distance is a feat few, even today, can match. At this point, it gets even more fascinating. His reflexes were equally breathtaking. At a distance of just 3 feet, Bruce could detect and react with a full strike in approximately 0.05 seconds, which is about 50 milliseconds. To put that in perspective, the average blink lasts around 100 to 150 milliseconds. Lee's reaction time was faster than a blink. Now you're probably wondering, how did he harness this elite speed? It came from targeted, high-repetition drills like shadowboxing, mitt work, wooden dummy practice, and unique drills like the coin grab and catch the falling object, which demanded lightning-fast fine motor responses. One student noted, Bruce could consistently snatch the coin 9 times out of 10, demonstrating precise and explosive reflex conditioning. Annual training reinforced his speed in 2 ways: the neuromuscular system's lightning transmission and a brain optimized for instantaneous coordination. Video analysis shows Lee's one-inch punch completed in less than 1/10 of a second, each joint firing in seamless succession. Reddit users also testify to this phenomenon. One shared that most of the folks he worked with and trained with commented on his speed, so he doubted it's a camera illusion. He figured Lee must have had an ungodly ratio of fast twitch muscle fiber in his makeup. Another remarked on how his movements simply outpaced film, stating that it's been frequently noted that Bruce was so fast, he had to slow his moves down because the cameras of that era couldn't keep up. Truly, his speed was a mix of raw physiology and technological invisibility, a fusion that gave rise to his mythical reputation. In essence, Bruce Lee was a walking paradox, visibly human, yet kinetically faster than most humans could perceive.
In Bruce Lee kick, you don't shake your eyes, because when you shake your eyes, you cannot see Bruce Lee kick. You know how fast?
His reflexes were honed to the point that his body moved like light, fast, precise, and almost impossible to counter. Mind-body mastery and mental strength. Bruce Lee didn't just train his body, he trained his mind like a muscle. He saw mental strength as central to martial mastery, viewing meditation as an active rather than passive practice. Instead of sitting cross-legged, Lee practiced meditation through movement, such as running, shadowboxing, and even bike riding, focusing fully on the moment to clear his mind. This melding of motion and mindfulness became a cornerstone of his discipline. This mental conditioning served him well during physical challenges too. When rehabilitating from a back injury, Lee used visualization techniques and breathing control to maintain mental focus and accelerate recovery. By internally rehearsing movements and calming his mind, he regained strength with remarkable speed, demonstrating how closely his cognitive and physical systems were intertwined. While that is fascinating, this next detail will further blow your mind. Breathing played a key role in his approach. The Bruce Lee Foundation recommends a 4-4-6 pause breathing cycle, breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 4, exhaling for 6, then pausing, which Lee practiced to regulate heart rate and manage stress. This wasn't just yoga-style calm, it was tactical preparation for high-pressure scenarios, helping him stay centered during conflicts or film sets. His emotional resilience also reveals more layers of mastery. One of his favorite adages is that true power is sitting back and observing everything with logic. Despite occasional emotional spikes in his personal life, this philosophy guided his practice, teaching him to watch impulses and respond with clarity instead of reaction. Lee's Taoist-infused philosophy emphasized being like water, fluid, adaptive, and resistant to rigidity. Through regular Taoist meditations, such as Neiguan and Zhanzhuang, he cultivated emotional balance and mental flexibility. These methods taught him to remain centered in the face of adversity, flowing around challenges rather than being locked by them. He also recognized that fear and mental blocks were battles to train for. One account is that his circle of fear Qigong visualization helped him shrink the distance between himself and perceived threats, reducing anxiety before a confrontation. Mentally reframing fear in this way gave him a psychological edge in fights and performances. Lee's integration of mind and body culminated in his unique concept of moment-to-moment awareness. Videos and analyses such as Hidden Technique to Sync Body and Mind dissect how he achieved instantaneous physical responses. His awareness finely tuned so tightly that the slightest cues triggered optimized motion. This non-linear coupling of cognition and action allowed his body to respond before conscious thought could intervene. Ultimately, Bruce Lee's mental training wasn't about chasing supernatural states. It was a rigorous, structured mastery of mental frameworks, awareness, breath, visualization, emotional control, and philosophical alignment. Combined, these forged an internal fortress that empowered all his physical feats and helped build his legend as a superhuman martial artist. Almost mythical feats and anecdotes. Bruce Lee's raw power was so legendary that he once destroyed a standard punching bag with a single sidekick, sending it crashing against the ceiling. Witnesses report that the bag rebounded and even tore through its chains, mauled, shredded, and airborne by Lee's sheer physical force. One student recalled that after Lee's kick, rags were everywhere, strewn across the lawn. The visual is cinematic, and most agree it happened exactly like that. He also relied on custom-built gear. James Coburn gifted him a 300-pound heavy bag just to withstand Bruce's strikes. This wasn't for show. Lee frequently ruptured or shattered regular bags, prompting the need for reinforced metal-filled equipment. These feats pointed to the kind of power only a few lightweight fighters ever produce, and Lee consistently exceeded those limits. But it doesn't end here. Beyond gear destruction, Lee casually performed warrior feats, like forcing his bare finger through thick, steel-ended Coke cans. Fans recount how he would thrust a fingertip cleanly through the can's wall, a steel can, mind you, and even leave significant indentations in solid pine wood with that same digit. By any standard, that's visual strength that verges on the superhuman. But the anecdotes don't end there. According to tales shared among his inner circle, Lee could snap off wooden boards 6 inches thick and launch vertical jumps of up to 8 feet from a standstill, all feats confirmed on film and by multiple eyewitnesses. Credible sources even noted that he could perform diamond push-ups on just his thumb and forefinger, sometimes multiple reps, and hold a V-sit for 30 minutes straight. Reddit shows this blend of belief and skepticism, where some stated that Bruce could take a 32-kilogram dumbbell with one hand, stretch his arm, and remain level for 20 seconds. That they've heard stuff like he could push a heavy bag twice his size. But some pushback is that most of the craziest feats of strength people attribute to him are his former friends and students hyping him up after he passed. Consider the spectacle of Bruce's 1-inch punch again, not just for its speed, but for its shocking effect. One demonstration reportedly sent a 235-pound man flying 15 feet. Another version of the same tale has the punch landing with an explosive force equivalent to a heavyweight boxer, despite Bruce himself weighing only around 130 pounds. Then, there are the near-lunar leaps. Bruce allegedly achieved vertical jumps exceeding 2 meters. Some say he hurled 300-kilogram punching bags with strikes strong enough to dislodge the chains holding them. If true, that translates to a level of lower body explosiveness rarely, if ever, seen outside of elite Olympic track and field. So where does truth end and myth begin? The consensus: Bruce Lee wasn't magical, but his raw power and speed were extraordinary, and often amplified by those around him in awe. While not every anecdote may stand under scientific scrutiny, some may even be embellishments, they collectively cement his reputation as one of the most physically impressive humans ever. Trailblazer in Hollywood and beyond. Bruce Lee broke through Hollywood's color barrier at a time when Asian men were typically relegated to caricatured sidekick or villain roles. His portrayal of Kato in The Green Hornet was a watershed moment, not just for martial arts, but for representation. Lee's performance imbued Kato with physical strength, intelligence, and charisma, making him an audience favorite. Among African-American viewers, his popularity rivaled that of Muhammad Ali. This wasn't just entertainment, it challenged prevailing norms by presenting an Asian character as competent, compelling, and heroic. His breakout roles in films like Fist of Fury and Enter the Dragon advanced this momentum. In Fist of Fury, Lee's character Chen Zhen avenges national humiliation by smashing a plaque reading "Sick Men of East Asia," a direct rebuke to colonial perceptions. With his ripped physique center screen, Lee shattered the emasculated Asian stereotype, offering a version of masculinity that was both fierce and dignified. His image, bare-chested, powerful, and unafraid, represented a dramatic shift in how Asian men were portrayed on the global stage. Lee's global appeal wasn't coincidental. It was the product of careful staging and authenticity. Enter the Dragon, Hollywood's first co-production with a Hong Kong studio, allowed Lee creative control and a chance to depict Asians on their terms. The film's success served up a new narrative. An Asian protagonist who wasn't a mimic of Western heroism, but rather a distinct and relatable model of strength and self-respect. Scholars point out that Lee's cultural authenticity invited viewers to rethink their biases and to see Asian masculinity as equally formidable. But why does his legacy endure? Here's the simple answer. Lee's legacy endures because he inspired more than just box office records. He ignited hopes. For many young Asian Americans growing up in the 1970s, Lee was the first time many non-white American children had seen a non-white action hero on the big screen. As playwright David Henry Hwang noted, Lee was the first Asian man to manifest all of the conventional American movie markers of masculinity, creating a template for future generations of Asian male actors. Through strength, dignity, and authenticity, Bruce Lee fundamentally changed how Asian masculinity was imagined, in film and life. Father of modern mixed martial arts, MMA. Bruce Lee's maxim, "Absorb what is useful, discard what is not," was revolutionary in martial arts. Rather than adhering to a fixed style, Lee encouraged exploring various combat disciplines and keeping only what worked best for the individual. This adaptive, no-boundaries approach wasn't just theory, it was Jeet Kune Do's beating heart, long before MMA was ever conceived. The parallels to modern MMA are unmistakable. In 2004, UFC President Dana White famously declared Lee the father of mixed martial arts, praising his belief that the perfect style was no style.
I grew up a big Bruce Lee fan. And when you watch Enter the Dragon, the premise is this fanatical guy got all these people from around the world who were supposed to be the best martial artists in the world.
White's endorsement contours Lee's philosophical lineage leading directly to today's MMA ethos. MMA greats have emphasized this legacy. UFC legend Conor McGregor has described himself as the physical embodiment of Bruce Lee's philosophies, emphasizing his mix-and-match approach to fighting style. Former middleweight champion Anderson Silva also credits Lee. These testimonials illustrate how Lee's mindset shapes not only training methods, but also fighters' self-identity in the octagon. This is because Bruce Lee wasn't content with sticking to any single martial art. Instead, he combined Western boxing for footwork and efficient punching, European fencing for timing and broken rhythm, and traditional martial arts for kicks and trapping, all synthesized into a dynamic, alive system known as Jeet Kune Do. Rather than blindly following tradition, he tested and blended techniques for their real combat effectiveness, rejecting static forms in favor of adaptable, responsive training. This shift from rigid, choreographed routines to scenario-based full-contact drills was groundbreaking. Lee criticized dead forms, exercises divorced from real-world fights, and instead emphasized realism. He implemented alive sparring and practical situational exercises that mimicked actual self-defense scenarios, a training innovation that many modern martial arts schools now teach as fundamental. The power of Lee's approach is clear in contemporary metrics because a 2019 study by Johnson et al. Found that schools adopting his alive training methods saw a 40% increase in student engagement and retention compared to traditional programs. And according to Martial Arts Illustrated, around 65% of modern dojos now use integrated elements of boxing and fencing, tactics first championed by Lee, underscoring the practical value of his cross-disciplinary model. Ultimately, Lee's holistic, adaptable mindset, mixing combat arts, emphasizing realism, and treating the body and mind as one, upended teaching norms and supercharged martial arts training worldwide. His legacy isn't confined to film. It lives on in every school that values cross-training, real-world effectiveness, and student engagement rooted in his vision. His impact rippled into pop culture, from iconic game characters modeled after his style to the structure of countless beat-em-up games. Some developers joke that the genre should be called Bruce em-ups beyond martial arts. Lee's visibility and influence uplifted not just Asians but all marginalized communities. His success sent a powerful message: heroes don't come in a single mold, and strong representation matters. Even over 50 years after his death, Bruce Lee remains celebrated worldwide. Statues, exhibitions, academic essays, and film retrospectives continue to draw thousands. His life is a canvas for constant reinterpretation and study. Bruce Lee's legacy lives on partly because his evolution was interrupted by his untimely death at just 32. Still, what he accomplished, physically, intellectually, and culturally, feels unfinished, fueling endless fascination. The question remains, how far could he have gone? What are your thoughts on the special ability of Bruce Lee? Do you think it was as a result of rigorous training alone or something more? Let us know in the comments section. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. Remember to like, share it, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.